everybody, welcome to my channel.
Joan Crawford, circa March 23, 1904 to May 10, 1977, was an American actress and one of the most iconic and controversial stars of Hollywood's golden age. Known for her fierce screen presence, steely glamour, and relentless ambition, Crawford rose from a difficult childhood to become an Academy Award-winning actress and enduring cultural figure. Early life. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur in San Antonio, Texas, Crawford endured poverty, abandonment by her father, and an unstable upbringing. Her early years were marked by hardship, and she worked as a dancer in nightclubs before entering Hollywood. In the 1920s, she was discovered by MGM and rechristened Joan Crawford after a fan contest. Rise to stardom. Crawford's breakout came during the silent film era, but she successfully transitioned to talkies, a feat that many of her peers couldn't manage. In the 1930s, she became the quintessential symbol of the rags to riches success story, often playing hardworking women who fought their way to success. She starred in films like Grand Hotel, 1932, Possessed, 1931, and Dancing Lady, 1933. Peak career. By the 1940s, her career faced a decline, but she made a stunning comeback with Mildred Pierce, 1945. A noir-tinged melodrama about a mother's sacrifices for her daughter. The role won her the Academy Award for Best Actress and redefined her career. She followed with acclaimed performances in Humoresque, 1946, Possessed, 1947, and Sudden Fear, 1952. Later career and reinvention. Crawford became known for playing tough, emotionally intense roles. In the 1960s, she embraced horror and psychological thrillers, most notably Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962, in which she starred opposite her longtime rival Bette Davis. Their real-life feud became the stuff of Hollywood legend and later inspired the TV series Feud, Betty and Joan. Public persona and legacy. Crawford was known for her meticulous image control and obsession with discipline and glamour. Off-screen, she adopted several children, including Christina Crawford, who would later write the explosive memoir Mommy Dearest, a book that severely damaged Joan's legacy by portraying her as abusive and emotionally unstable. The 1981 film adaptation turned No Wire Hangers into a camp classic moment. Despite the controversies, Crawford remains a symbol of resilience and reinvention in Hollywood. Her film legacy includes more than 80 films across 5 decades, and she was named the 10th greatest female star of classic Hollywood cinema by the American Film Institute. Death. Joan Crawford died of a heart attack on May 10, 1977, in New York City. She famously left 2 of her children out of her will, for reasons which are well known to them, further fueling the mystery and myth surrounding her life. Joan Crawford. A life in fierce focus. Glowing star. The Star is Born. From struggle to spotlight. Joan Crawford's origin story reads like the very melodramas she would later dominate on screen. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur, she was the daughter of a laundress and a wandering salesman. Her childhood was marred by abandonment, poverty, and abuse. Determined to escape her harsh reality, she worked as a dancer in nightclubs and chorus lines. Her entry into Hollywood came through bit parts and publicity stunts. Including a contest to rename her, she reportedly hated Joan Crawford, calling it phony, but it stuck. Clapperboard. The MGM years. The flapper turned queen by the late 1920s and 1930s. Crawford became one of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's biggest stars, often cast as working-class girls who clawed their way up to sophistication, characters that mirrored her own life story. She embodied the flapper image early on and then matured into sophisticated leading lady roles in films like Our Dancing Daughters, 1928, launched her as a flapper icon. Grand Hotel, 1932, ensemble prestige picture with Greta Garbo. The Women, 1939, a sharp, all-female satire where Crawford played a scheming shopgirl. Her box office popularity rivaled that of Garbo and Norma Shearer, and she was dubbed box office poison in 1938, but she rebounded spectacularly. Trophy Mildred Pierce in reinvention. By the 1940s, Crawford was let go by MGM. But she wasn't finished. She signed with Warner Brothers and took on the lead role in Mildred Pierce, 1945, a career-defining performance. The film combined noir, domestic drama, and maternal sacrifice. Crawford played a mother who rises from waitress to successful restaurateur, only to be betrayed by her ungrateful daughter. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress, a validation of her talent and willpower. It also revealed her ability to transform and evolve, something not every star could do. Brain methodical, controlling, unyielding, Crawford was renowned, and sometimes feared, for her discipline and control. She worked tirelessly to protect her image and was known to bathe her face in ice water, insist on perfect lighting, and never appear in public without being fully styled. She was deeply involved in her fan club and answered fan mail herself for years. But these qualities also made her difficult to work with. Directors and co-stars often clashed with her, citing her perfectionism and pride. Her attention to detail, however, helped sustain a career that spanned 5 decades. Smile with Horns feud with Bette Davis. Her rivalry with fellow legend Bette Davis reached its peak with the film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? 1962, where they played fated actresses locked in a twisted relationship. Behind the scenes, the two fought for control and credit. Davis was nominated for an Oscar for the role. Crawford wasn't. In revenge, Crawford reportedly lobbied other nominees not to attend and accepted the Oscar on behalf of the winner, Anne Bancroft. The feud has become part of Hollywood folklore and was immortalized in FX's Feud, Betty and Joan, 2017, starring Jessica Lange and Susan Sarandon. Family Woman Girl Boy Adoption and Family Struggles. Crawford adopted 4 children, Christina, Christopher, and twins Kathy and Cindy. But her mothering style came under harsh scrutiny with the release of Mommy Dearest, 1978, a memoir by Christina that portrayed Crawford as abusive, alcoholic, and obsessively controlling. The book painted a stark contrast to her public persona as a glamorous, self-made star. The film adaptation, 1981, starring Faye Dunaway, turned her into a camp villain, especially for the infamous "no wire hangers" scene. To this day, there's debate over the truth of the book. Some defend Crawford as a strict but loving mother. Others believe Christina's claims. Either way, the book reshaped her legacy. Beverage box business savvy. In the 1950s and 60s, Crawford served on the board of directors for the Pepsi-Cola Company, thanks to her marriage to Pepsi executive Alfred Steele. After his death, she continued to travel, attend meetings, and promote the brand, further demonstrating her resilience and reinvention. Candle final years and death. Crawford's later years were quieter but no less enigmatic. She withdrew from public life in the 1970s after a candid photograph showed her looking frail and aged. "If that's how I look, then they won't see me anymore," she said. She died of a heart attack on May 10, 1977, at age 73, in New York City. In her will, she disinherited Christina and Christopher, writing, "It is my intention to make no provision herein for my son Christopher or my daughter Christina for reasons which are well known to them." Crown legacy. Joan Crawford remains one of the most iconic figures in Hollywood history. She represents the triumph of reinvention over typecasting and adversity, the double-edged sword of fame. How image can become both armor and prison, a cautionary tale and an inspiration, depending on whom you ask. Today, she is remembered not only for her films but also for the legend she became, through talent, grit, image control, and the storm of controversy that followed her long after death. Joan Crawford. The performer and the paradox fire acting style and on-screen persona. Crawford was not a chameleon in the traditional sense. She didn't disappear into her roles the way someone like Meryl Streep might. Instead, she refined and amplified her own image into a towering screen archetype: the survivor, the striver, the woman who refuses to break. She wielded a unique blend of emotional intensity, often on the edge of hysteria but never uncontrolled physical command, square shoulders, expressive eyes, and a walk that demanded attention, discipline, never lazy in a scene. Always precise, she was known to rehearse tirelessly and fight directors who didn't match her level of preparation. That rigidity could work against her in looser, more modern acting styles. But in the golden age of Hollywood melodrama and noir, it made her magnetic. Her performances often embodied female resilience in the face of social repression. And this resonated especially with women viewers during the Depression, war years, and post-war periods. Crawford wasn't just glamorous, she was aspirational. Heartbreak, romantic relationships, and marriages. Crawford's love life was turbulent, marked by high-profile relationships, passionate affairs, and 4 marriages. Her husbands included Douglas Fairbanks Jr., her first marriage, tying her to Hollywood royalty. His father was Douglas Fairbanks Sr., of swashbuckling fame. The marriage ended partly due to disapproval from Fairbanks Sr. Franket Tone, a respected actor and intellectual. Their marriage dissolved over career tensions and alleged abuse. Philip Terry, a short-lived union with little emotional connection. Alfred Steele, the CEO of Pepsi-Cola. Their marriage was deeply affectionate, and his death in 1959 devastated her. She also had rumored affairs with Clark Gable, Spencer Tracy, and possibly Marilyn Monroe, among many others. Crawford was unapologetically sexual, even predatory by some accounts, and deeply aware of the power of her beauty. Family Woman, Girl, Motherhood, and Mommy Dearest. Fallout. Christina Crawford's 1978 memoir Mommy Dearest was a cultural bombshell. The public, used to seeing Joan as a poised, unshakable icon, was confronted with a woman allegedly driven by alcoholism, explosive rages, obsessive cleanliness, emotional cruelty. The book, and subsequent movie starring Faye Dunaway, turned her into a camp icon, especially within the LGBTQ+ community. But it also muddied her legacy. While some friends like Vanessa Brown and Kathy Crawford, adopted daughter, disputed Christina's claims, others admitted Crawford had a dark side. Actress Myrna Loy once said Joan was a great star, but not a warm woman. Beverage box. The Pepsi years after marrying Alfred Steele, Joan threw herself into corporate life, attending shareholder meetings, opening bottling plants, and even battling boardroom politics after Steele's death. She was more than a trophy wife, she became a Pepsi ambassador, traveling globally with poise and professionalism. When the board tried to force her out, she fought back hard and eventually resigned with dignity. Her efforts helped keep Pepsi relevant during post-war expansion. Kiss Mark Beauty, Ritual, and the armor of glamour. Crawford's looks were not traditionally soft or girl next door. Her features, angular cheekbones, prominent eyebrows, wide mouth, were bold, and she accentuated them mercilessly. She was also known for bathing her face in ice cubes every morning, having her teeth capped and brows reshaped to suit camera angles, sleeping with her hands elevated to prevent puffiness, requesting specific lighting setups. On film sets she understood that glamour was labor, not luck, And in this, she pioneered a kind of manufactured beauty ethic that later stars like Madonna and Lady Gaga would inherit. Mirror Joan Crawford. In the LGBTQ+ community, Joan Crawford became a powerful symbol in gay culture, particularly among gay men and drag performers. Her combination of camp appeal, larger-than-life emotion, high drama, and victimhood, hyper-feminized glamour, made her an ideal subject of homage and parody. Mommy Dearest only amplified this image, transforming her into a kind of queer anti-hero. Abusive, yes, but also transgressive, powerful, and too big for the world around her. Classical building legacy in modern film and culture despite the scandals. Joan Crawford's influence continues. Her style influenced generations of fashion and film. Structured suits, exaggerated eyes, and commanding silhouettes. Her roles inspired complex female characters in modern drama, from antiheroines to suffering matriarchs. Her image lives on in drag, memes, TV, feud, and even retrospectives at major film festivals. She is the subject of film studies courses, feminist critique, and endless debate. Film projector. Essential films of Joan Crawford. If you're looking to explore her artistry, start with these. Mildred Pierce, 1945, her masterpiece. Maternal melodrama meets noir. Possessed, 1947, a portrait of psychological unraveling. Sudden Fear, 1952, suspenseful, stylish thriller. Grand Hotel, 1932, MGM prestige ensemble drama. The Women, 1939, acidic comedy with all-female cast. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962, cult classic horror. The Psychology of Joan Crawford, Woman vs. Persona. Joan Crawford wasn't merely playing roles, she was crafting a fortress of identity, built out of ambition, trauma, and image management. Her life was a masterclass in self-invention, but also self-erasure. She destroyed early photos, denied her original name, and built the myth of Joan Crawford with obsessive precision. Underneath that steel-plated glamour, however, lay a deeply fragile woman. Fear of rejection and loss likely fueled her intensity on and off screen. Trauma from poverty and abuse gave her an unrelenting drive to control her environment, her image, and her children. Loneliness haunted her personal relationships. Despite adopting 4 children and marrying 4 times, she died largely isolated. The gap between Lucille LeSueur and Joan Crawford may be the most tragic performance of all. A woman so determined to rise that she became the role she created. Nazar Amulet. Crawford and control. Feminist icon or tyrant? Modern feminist readings of Joan Crawford are complex and contradictory. On one hand, she represents empowered female agency. She carved her own way in a male-dominated industry, negotiated her contracts, and refused to be discarded after 40. Reinvention and resistance. As Hollywood discarded older women, she doubled down, taking roles in thrillers, horror, and business. Professional parody. She demanded respect equal to her male co-stars, often clashing with them over billing, lighting, or story importance. But on the other hand, her abusive parenting, as alleged by Christina, and brutal perfectionism complicate her legacy. Her survival instinct sometimes came at the expense of others, especially female rivals. She could be complicit in perpetuating the very glamour standards that oppressed other women. So, is Joan Crawford a feminist icon? She's more than that, she's a case study in what it costs to become one. Briefcase Crawford, the businesswoman. Beyond the set, Joan Crawford didn't just play powerful women, she was one behind the scenes. Consider, she negotiated with studios during an era when actresses were treated like property. She chose her scripts carefully, often battling for better material. She left MGM, her longtime studio, when she was given subpar roles. As a board member of Pepsi-Cola, she gave speeches, handled PR disasters, and toured plants. She wasn't a figurehead, she was a functioning executive. This rare crossover from film star to corporate figure made her an anomaly, a woman of commerce in an industry of vanity. Book's cultural archetype. The Crawford myth. Crawford has outlived herself as an actress. She has become a symbol, an archetype invoked in many forms, the Ice Queen, emotionally sealed, always in control. The martyr mother, giving all to her child and getting betrayal in return. The fallen star, once radiant, now aging, grotesque, and tragic. The drag diva, imitated and exaggerated for camp and irony. Each version speaks to her layered impact, not only as a woman, but as a story America keeps retelling to examine gender, power, and image. Headstone after death, memory, myth, and reappraisal. Since her death in 1977, Joan Crawford's image has undergone waves of transformation. 1978 to 1985, posthumous infamy via Mommy Dearest, which many took at face value. 1990s. Critical re-evaluation of her films began, helped by feminist and queer film scholars. 2010s to 2020s, a full cultural reassessment, TV series, feud, Blu-ray re-releases, biographies, and public apologies from those who judged her too quickly. Critics now recognize the duality of her legacy: abusive yet groundbreaking, cruel yet vulnerable, monstrous yet magnificent. Classical building. Final legacy. What Joan Crawford represents. Joan Crawford is many things, depending on the lens you use. To film historians, a long-reigning queen of studio-era cinema. With 80-plus films and an Oscar. To feminists, a tragic warrior of female independence. Crushed by the very system she mastered. To the LGBTQ+ community, a divine monster, an icon of artifice, tragedy, and transformation. To pop culture, the mother of all mothers, flawed, terrifying, unforgettable. To Pepsi, their most glamorous brand ambassador ever. She is not easily categorized. And that's her power. Joan Crawford as a visual force. The aesthetic of power. Joan Crawford's visual identity was never accidental. From the 1930s onward, she curated a look that stood for strength, elegance, and danger. Her bold makeup, arched brows, squared shoulders, and wide-legged pants were fashion statements, yes, but they were also political. 1930s Crawford. Soft glamour, Art Deco gowns, Marcel waves. A young woman clawing her way to social prestige, both on screen and in life. 1940s Crawford. Angular, almost militant. The war years hardened her style, sharp suits, dark lips. Almost armor-like fashion. 1950s to 60s Crawford. High drama. Plunging necklines, exaggerated makeup, tightly controlled wigs. Her look became more theatrical, almost drag-like. She was an early embodiment of power dressing, decades before it became a boardroom norm. Designers like Adrian, MGM's costume designer, helped build her look. But Crawford took that stylization and made it a lifestyle. She knew that glamour wasn't about decoration, it was authority. Firecracker. Post-war America's mirror. The unraveling woman. Crawford's most critically acclaimed roles, from Mildred Pierce to Possessed to Queen Bee, often showed her unraveling. These characters echoed post-war anxieties. The perfect homemaker crumbling under pressure, the competent woman losing control of her family or mind, the strong woman being punished for ambition in Mildred Pierce. She's a self-made restaurateur, but her daughter's hatred destroys her. In Possessed, her obsession leads to madness. In Sudden Fear, her independence nearly gets her killed. These weren't just melodramas, they were morality plays about women stepping outside traditional roles. America, returning from World War II, was trying to push women back into domesticity. Crawford's characters resisted, and often they paid the price, on screen. But off-screen, they became templates for a new kind of heroine, flawed, powerful, tragic. Face mask Joan Crawford in the pantheon of Hollywood legends. Crawford belongs to a rare class of stars whose legacies transcend performance. Alongside Garbo, Davis, Hepburn, Dietrich, and Taylor, she represents the rise of the studio system, the survival of women in a male-run industry, the shift from silent film expressiveness to spoken psychological acting, the myth of American self-creation. But unlike some contemporaries who projected aloofness or spontaneity, Crawford's appeal was effortful. You could see the steel in her smile. That tension between effort and elegance, between control and collapse, is what made her unforgettable. Rainbow Flag Camp, drag, and the cult of Crawford no star has been adopted more passionately by the drag and queer community than Joan Crawford, except perhaps Judy Garland. But Garland was tragic and sweet. Crawford was imperious, theatrical, over the top, perfect for drag, camp, and parody. In drag culture, Crawford symbolizes kiss mark hyperfemininity as armor, collision, melodrama, and vengeance as performance, smile with horns, villainy with a heart, a diva undone by her own perfection. From Mommy Dearest to RuPaul's Drag Race, Crawford's look and mannerisms are performative gold. She is a goddess of contradiction, both terrifying and glamorous, both victim and tyrant. Satellite dish Joan Crawford in the internet era. In the age of memes, YouTube, and TikTok, Joan Crawford has found a second digital life. Her dialogue from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Queen Bee, and of course Mommy Dearest is clipped, remixed, and posted as reaction content. Her famous lines, "Don't F*** with me, fellas. This ain't my first time at the rodeo. Tina, bring me the axe. I'd rather be here with you than with the cleverest people in the world," have all been recontextualized as camp affirmations, queer rage, or boss bitch memes. Even Crawford's downfall, once tragic, is now reframed as empowering in its defiance. Her refusal to age quietly, to disappear, to fade into softness, makes her a rebellious ancestor of modern digital femininity. Checkered flag conclusion. Joan Crawford, a mortal contradiction. Joan Crawford was a legend of the silver screen, a self-made woman with steel in her spine, a mother accused of monstrous cruelty, a symbol of both resilience and rigidity, a star who refused to disappear. Even in death her legacy is unclean, uncomfortable, and unsinkable. To understand Joan Crawford is to look directly at the contradictions of female power in America, the cost of control, the performance of perfection, and the hunger that stardom can never truly feed. She wasn't just a woman or an actress. She was a storm in heels. And her thunder is still echoing. The final act, Joan Crawford in decline by the late 19th.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching.